Hello, everyone. This week, we'll talk briefly about fire protection, which is covered under OSHA Part 1910, Subpart L. The objectives for this week are to be familiar with the elements of Subpart L, define key terminology, discuss what elements make up a fire brigade, discuss the use of fire extinguishers and other fire extinguishing systems, and where to get additional information. So there's several standards, as you can see down here. 1910.155 pertains itself with the scope, application, and definitions of this fire protection standard. Then we have standards that are specific to fire extinguishers, standpipe and hose systems, automatic sprinklers, fire extinguishing systems in general. And then it gets a little bit more specific. Then we start talking about the different subcategories of fire extinguishing systems, such as dry chemical systems, gaseous state systems, employee alarm systems. Then we talk about the different appendices that are encompassed under this standard, which are listed here. Now let's go over the fire tetrahedron. So the basic components of any given fire are four elements. It's a common misconception to think of it as a fire triangle, to think that it only has three elements, but the truth is that there are four elements that make up any given fire. Fuel, for instance, gasoline, wood, whatnot. A source of ignition, a match or electrostatic, oxygen. There needs to be oxygen in the atmosphere in order for fire to actually start, and the chemical reaction, the process of combustion itself. This is commonly referred to as the fire tetrahedron. Now, the scope of this standard is to contain the requirements for fire brigades, all portable and fixed fire suppression systems, fire detection systems, and fire or employee alarm systems that meet the fire protection requirements of Title 29 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 1910. Okay, here to talk about to which industries is this standard applicable. This is applicable to all employments, that is all businesses except for maritime, construction, and agricultural related businesses. Okay, then we start talking about different kinds of definitions, such as approved, the different classes of fire. Class A fire pertains itself with fires involving ordinary combustible materials, such as paper, wood, cloth, in essence, rubbish that you will find in any trash can. Class B fires involves fires involving flammable or combustible liquids, flammable gases, greases, and similar materials. Class C fires relate to fires involved that have something to do with an energized electrical equipment. So you will need to use an electrical non-conductive fire extinguisher in order to safely extinguish this fire. Class D fires mean fire involving combustible metals such as magnesium, titanium, zirconium, sodium, etc. This contains a nice summary of what was previously stated, and it also adds Class K fires, which are related to cooking oils and fats. These are probably the hardest fires to extinguish. Now, some other definitions include the classification that's used for extinguishers, the rating, what a fire brigade is. Please go back to these slides and review the definitions and learn them. They might come up in your midterm or final exam. What a fire extinguisher system is. For now, let's jump up to discuss the different fire extinguisher types and for what fires are there specific. So there are different kinds of extinguishers. The most common out there is an extinguisher of the type ABC or BC. Those are usually dry chemical or dry powder extinguishers. Those are good, as the name kind of implies, for class A, B, or C fires. Water extinguishers would not be good, for instance, for class C fires for energized electrical equipments, because that will be a conducive element for electricity and you might end up electrocuting yourself. So those are only useful, for instance, for Class A fires. Combustible metals require their own extinguisher type, so any given extinguisher that's classified as Class D will be specific for it. And kitchens usually have a larger fire extinguisher that's labeled as Class K, that's able to extinguish grease-related fires. Let's talk about extinguisher ratings now. Extinguishers have a numerical rating given to Class A and B extinguishers that indicates how large a fire an experienced person can put out with the extinguisher. The ratings are based on a series of tests conducted at the underwriters' laboratories. Class A, for instance, you can find things such as, for instance, like 1A class extinguisher, 2A, etc. Class B, same. A 4A extinguisher, for example, should extinguish twice as much fire as a 2A extinguisher. Now, let's talk about what A and B stand for. So, depending on the class of the extinguisher, the A, B, C, or D also stand for up to how many feet can a given extinguisher cover to extinguish a fire. A Class A extinguisher can cover up to 75 feet, Class B 50 feet, etc., etc. Now, when it comes to the portable fire extinguishers, the inspection and maintenance and testing requirements, all extinguishers need to be visually inspected monthly. They need to be maintained annually by a certified company, and they need to be hydrostatically tested periodically. The guidelines for how often the extinguishers need to be reviewed change depending on the state in which you're currently sitting at. California has its own set of requirements. It's usually every 5 or 6 years, though. Now, when it comes to fire brigades, let's talk about the organizational training and PPE requirements. Organizational wise, the employer needs to prepare and maintain a written policy statement that establishes that the fire brigade and its organizational structure defines the roles that each person will perform and that states the training program requirements. When it comes to training and education, this has to be, of course, performed prior to the assignment. You don't want to send untrained people to extinguish a given fire. They need to be trained on an annual basis, and there needs to be some quarterly training or education sessions in which a fire brigade is expected to perform interior structural firefighting. In terms of equipment, the employer shall maintain and inspect at least annually the firefighting equipment to assure the safe operational condition of such equipment. Portable extinguishers need to be inspected at least monthly, and respirators the same. When it comes to PPE, the requirements apply to those employees who perform interior structural firefighting. They do not apply to employees who use fire extinguishers or standpipe systems to fire incipient level fires. The standard, when it refers to protective clothing, it talks about the PPE that's specific for food and limb protection, body protection, hand protection, head, eye, and face protection, the respirators that need to be used, the ratings, the criteria. And that's it for this week's lecture. I will upload the file into Canvas. Thank you. Have a great day.